Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. So before we go on, I want to introduce you to the second part of this class titled Endless Ocean, Introduction to Quranic Morphology. In the 10-day course which we had, we actually went through a lot of material rather quickly, and we did it in a very compressed fashion, and you got the basics of what you need to understand the basics of Quranic grammar and how is it that it's going to be interpreted, etc. How do you apply the rules? So now what we're going to end up doing is we will take some overview information for today and just go over what a verb encompasses. But then on top of that, we'll also look at a little bit of the old isms that we had gone over, the old concepts of Nahu, which we had studied in those 10 days. And it was actually quite a bulk of information. So now what we're going to do is we are going to delve into verbs. Now, I'm not going to get too much into the information today, just from today. I just want to introduce the concept of verbs and see how it goes from there. So what I do want to say is this. I'm going to pull up another screen here so that I can type. What I do want to go over is that what is it that you're going to need in this class. So in this ocean, just like before, how I used to send out slides and videos and whatnot, I'll continue doing that. And as I'd mentioned, the majority of this course will be self-study. So the first session is going to be live, and then if there's any other questions needed, then we can go on with it. But within this course, we're going to be looking at a couple of things. And the first thing is, what materials will you need? The first is the transcripts. And the transcripts will be sent out. All of them actually will be set up on a web page for you to download shortly. You'll receive it this week. And then after that, you will need the videos, because that's where you're going to get the lesson. And then the third thing which you're most likely going to need as well is a book called Treasures of Morphology. And this will be sent via email. It's a PDF. So I wouldn't fully depend on this book, but at the same time, you want to use it with some other books which I may send. And a fourth, I have a book. It's called Tasheel al-Nahu. It may be useful in actually helping yourself understand how it is that a lot of these things will generally work when it comes to verbs and etc. Now, moving back to the book that we were going over beforehand, the introduction to verbs. Now, to just give you a general understanding of what verbs are in the Arabic language, the bulk of understanding verbs actually happens in this scenario. It happens wherein once you get a hold of the Arabic language, it means that you've gotten a very solid grasp of how verbs change and how they morph. So the key thing here is about memorizing verbs, because that's how it works, meaning memorizing the patterns of the verb. But it's not just information. It's not about memorizing raw information. It's about understanding a tune, for example, more of understanding a mathematical formula. So that's just something to take a look at. And I'm not going to get into all of this periphery information, but what I did want you to take a look at here is how to recognize verb patterns. So here, for example, you notice something that these are about 8 solid verb patterns, and this is how verbs will generally look. So you have fa'ala, right? And then you have yaf'alu, fu'ila, yuf'alu. And the only thing I want you to pay attention to here is actually the way these verbs are constructed. Because if you look at the red parts, I've made it red because these are actually variables. So you can put anything there. As for the blue part doesn't change, but the various forms of these verbs can change. And they will go through various changes throughout. So for example, I'll put a verse here. I'm going to pull it up very quickly. here I'm going to paste a verse. This is from Surah Al-Nahl. And in this verse, basically, Allah is saying that ضَرَبَ اللَّهُ مَثَلًا عَبْدًا مَمْلُوكًا, that God is giving an example of an owned slave. Now, generally, right now, since you don't have any full out realization of how a verb looks, just from understanding, I know that this is a verb, right? And daraba means he hit. Daraba means he hit. Now, looking at this form, I know that it is a past tense active verb. Now, at the same time, how do I turn this into a present tense active verb? We'll eventually learn that it can also morph into yadribu. Yadribu, right? Now, how do I turn this? Now, yadribu means what? Means he, or rather, he is hitting. So what did it become? It became the present tense, actually. It became the present tense. Now, how do I take that and turn it into fa'il? Now, you're not sure right now as to what these forms do, but we'll see in a second what happens. The doer, for example. We know that we can turn it into daribun, which means the hitter, the one who is doing the hitting. Now, all of these verbs, or rather these verbs are morphing, and we don't know how yet, but at the same time we're looking at something here, and we're noticing that various actions occur, and at the same time that there is a certain way that it's known that these actions occur, and there is a doer inside of it, meaning that there's a pronoun inside of it. How is the action happening? What is the action happening? Who is doing the action, and who is it being done to? Many times within all of this, if you're into coding and whatnot, if you understand the idea of coding, is that there's a packed amount of information within the finished product already. So if you have a web page, it's understandable that there's a lot of code behind that to produce it, to make it what it is. The same way, a verb, it can be turned in, what is inside a verb? The verb actually consists of three root letters which have a meaning, and then inside there's also a pronoun. And sometimes we will know that the person who is having the action done to them, but then at other times you'll have the information of who is doing the action. So this course will go over all of that. Now, I'm gonna give you some background information about verbs. So we're gonna go over it. 1 second. So I'm gonna put something here. Actually, I'm gonna copy all this. I'm going to switch over to the other screen, and then we're going to go through some examples. So I'm going to write a few sentences in English, and then I'll have you pick some of the verbs out. So what I'm going to ask you to do actually is unmute your microphone so that we can actually go through some of these examples.
Sure.
Just to go over this. So just like before, we had gone over how to identify isms, fi'ls, and harfs. The same way, I want you to do exactly that. So if it's an ism, I want you to make it, well, you can say it's yellow. And then if it's a fi'l, i.e. if it's a verb, then we'll turn it into red. And then if it's a harf, then we'll uh, make it a blue. So let's do these examples and then we'll start figuring it out to see what we're trying to do. So the boy ran fast to the car. The first thing I want you to do is tell me which one is the verb.
Ran.
Okay, good. And the second one?
Fed.
Sped, good. But here,
And drove.
good.
Broke.
All right. And then here.
Barked.
Okay, perfect. And then ran. The tense, for example, it's obvious. Ran is a past tense verb. Sped is a past tense verb. Drove is a past tense verb. And then broke is a past tense verb. And then barked is also a past tense verb. So now, just to reiterate some of the old examples we've done, which ones? Let's go back to the first sentence. What are all the isms here?
Okay. Boy and car.
Okay, so boy and car.
Car
Anything
and
else?
drove. Uh,
Remember, nouns or isms consist of a person, a place, a thing, an idea, adverbs, and adjectives as well.
okay. Fast.
Yep. For this one,
Okay. Car.
car. Okay.
Down and road.
Okay. Here.
Okay. Man.
Uh huh.
And very and fast.
Very good. Right here.
E. Glass with hammer.
With I will leave out, but hammer
Okay.
also.
Hammer.
Yeah. And here.
Dog.
Mm-hmm.
And street.
Okay. Good. And then the rest of these are going to be harf, obviously, because it's the process of elimination.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it is. So yeah, that's basically that.
Okay. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, but anyhow?